Good morning.
We all remember what it's like to come up here and start with our icebreaker speech, our very first Toastmaster speech. And today we have that pleasure from Kevin doing his Competent Communicator 1 speech, or the icebreaker speech. Now, in Toastmasters, we like to work through the Competent Communicator Manual and work through the Competent Leadership Manual so we can grow into our position or into our role as a future Toastmaster or leader in Toastmasters. Today, Kevin's going to present his speech on engineering, you'll grow into it, and how he grew into his career here at Consumers. Timer, he will need a green light at 4 minutes, a yellow light at 5 minutes, and a red light at 6 minutes, please. For all of you evaluating Kevin, today he is learning to gain comfort speaking in front of the group, and he would also like to work on eliminating filler words, our favorite thing, ahs and ums and so's and nows. And then some other things to keep in mind for his speech evaluation, working on his Competent Communicator 1, looking for a clear beginning, a body, and conclusion. Please welcome Kevin.
Thank you, Christine. Fellow Toastmasters. Picture yourself in this situation, if you would, for just a minute. You're 8 years old, it's early August, you're back to school shopping with your mom, looking for a new pair of pants. You're at the clearance rack, she sees a pair of pants for 80% off. She hands them to you and tells you to go try them on. You come out, and with holding your pants up only by your hands, and you say, I think they're a little big. And she looks back at you and says, you'll grow into it. Has anybody had a similar experience of that?
Yes.
Well, we know that eventually you probably did grow into them, and we do know that it wasn't something that happens instantly or even overnight while you sleep. It's a very gradual process. A similar thing can be said for how I chose the field of engineering. It wasn't a single event in my life, but rather a conglomeration of many other events earlier on in my life. Some of these seemed purely recreational at the time and insignificant, but I can say looking back now that they actually were significant as I grew into this engineering role. The first event or activity I'd say was towards the building block would be just that, a building block, a Lego building block. From age 5 to about 10, as far as I was concerned, Legos dominated Christmas. My cousin and I were both equally interested in them, and based on our reaction towards Legos, you might think there might be some gold inside of those based on how we hoarded them and we always wanted more. We would spend countless hours, usually on the weekends, crafting our creations, which were often spaceships. If you've ever played with Legos, you know that they're not very sturdy, though, when you impact them on something that's harder than them, or if you drop them from any distance. They usually break into 100 pieces or so. So one day I challenged myself to create a ship that wouldn't break. I created a design, very informal, just started building something that I thought would work well and it wouldn't break. And then I decided to test my creation by dropping it end over end down the stairs. Had resolved and made some improvements and iterated back, and without even really realizing it, I had identified an engineering problem, proposed a solution to myself, implemented that solution, and tested the solution. And I'm sure my mom didn't appreciate all the dents and scrapes that were left in the drywall along the stairway, but that's the cost of progress. Fast forward a couple of years, my cousin and I are outside on a nice sunny day, aspiring to build a tree fort in a maple tree just along the edge of the woods at his house. Now this was the important safety lesson that part of my growing into an engineer. This would be the perfect spot to insert that story where one of us fell out of a haphazardly built platform onto the ground and ended up in the emergency room, but thankfully for me, I don't have such a story. Knock on wood. But it was rather the proactive safety measures and insistence of my aunt and uncle that before we did anything else, we had to build safety barriers around the platform. And even though nothing happened negatively to us, it's something that stuck with me through the years. And it underlines the importance of thinking about safety first whenever you're designing, engineering, or building something. And that's something that I take with me and almost second nature, usually apply every day in my work here. The final event or experience that I had was, it started in 7th grade. My cousin and I had graduated from building tree forts, and we were looking to build something more substantial and permanent. So we set out to build a cabin. And the cabin as it stands today is a 12-foot by 12-foot wooden frame cabin, has hardwood floors, hardwood paneling, a potbelly stove for the winter, and electricity. And it's actually not far from the old tree fort, so it's kind of a natural progression for us. Now this further nudged me down that path towards growing into an engineer, because I had to create a design, very simple for a 12 by 12 cabin, but still a lot to handle. Create a plan to implement that design, and then actually implement the design. And what I learned most of it, and so that pretty much kind of dominated my free time for several years there, and I was always making lists of what we needed to buy, what we needed to do, in what order we need to do those things. And from those lists I learned that when you make a plan, it almost never goes according to the plan. But it's the engineer's job to reassess and recreate a new plan and make sure that new plan aligns with the goals and the objectives and the timelines of the original plan. The cabin was a big success, and got a lot of good memories spending time in the cabin through high school and middle school. And and I can say that it's prepared me for my current project, which is renovating my recently purchased first house. The lists are a little bit longer, and there's a few more zeros on the price tag, but it's very similar. To some, I can say that many people attempt to attribute their chosen vocation to one watershed moment in their life, but I know that's not the case for me. I know that it was a series of several events that seemed insignificant at the time, but in retrospect, they actually were quite significant. And I know that going forward, there'll be many more opportunities for me to continue to grow into this role.